Welcome back. It's been about 10 seconds since I ended the last video, recording time. But anyway, in this video we're going to talk about prep I've been doing that doesn't directly contribute to the story part of the campaign. This is stuff I've been doing like making terrain and painting miniatures and stuff. Because I started playing just a little over a year ago now, I think. And then before that I had played years ago. I've been doing a lot of research on how to really efficiently prep and organize my notes. And I've gone through many iterations. And even in this campaign, we've had 9 sessions. I've probably changed my methods 3 or 4 times already. So every other session or so. So what I was doing before is I'd have a notebook and I would kind of write some stuff in that. And then I would just have that notebook at the table. But that ends up getting disorganized really fast for me. Or it feels that way. And I've gone through various iterations of that. I've had a notebook, and then I had a binder with sheets I could put into it. This thing. So I could put sheets in here and just move them around. Because I felt with the notebook it would get disorganized. I'd put something on one page and then write some stuff for a few pages, and then put something on another page. Then I want the things close together, but I can't move it around, and it felt disorganized, so I went this other method. But then the problem I had with that is that, I might have ideas, but then, this is off in this other room, or it's at home, or whatever, and I can't write it down. So I put notes somewhere else, and then they're all spread out everywhere, and it was just getting crazy. I started reading through Lazy Dungeon Master stuff, and I picked up some stuff from there. I watched this one video from Jim Murphy about his minimalist prepping, and I took some ideas from there. So what he does is he puts everything on note cards, and then keeps those in a little box. I did start doing this, and I am going to continue doing this. I think he has a lot of good ideas, but I think it doesn't solve all of my problems. So I keep my monster stats in that, and I keep item cards in there, and I keep, and I might keep some small map fragments in there for random encounter things, and a few different random tables that I need every once in a while I might keep in there. But for the most part, it's going to be stat block kind of stuff. I think he does a lot of prep in that single space. The problem is again, I may not have one of those cards available to write down notes, and then I have notes in different formats in different places. So that didn't work out for me for that aspect. But I do like having that box at the table where I can just pull out a monster stat that I wrote and use it in a pinch if I need to. So then what I started doing, and I started doing this I think 3 sessions ago, and this has been the thing that felt the best to me so far, is I just write them out in Google Documents. And then when I'm actually ready to run it, I print it up on the printer, and then I stick it in a little binder that I use that I have other rules notes in. I run from there, and then I can just throw it away when the session's over. There's a couple things I like about doing session notes this way. What I like about this is I can open it on my phone, I could open it on any of my computers, and pretty much no matter where I am, I can open it and add something to it. The other thing I like about it is I can put it in this outline format, which I find very helpful for organizing my notes. Finally, I don't have to parse my terrible handwriting while I'm running a session. I can have very clean text and bold keywords, so I can just glance down, see something bolded, and reseed my memory from that. I found this to be the most effective thing so far. It may be that 3 sessions from now I find something different, but right now this feels pretty good and solid. What else? So one thing I decided to do for this campaign is I'm going to, anytime they find a magic weapon or something, it's not going to be just a +1 sword. I'm going to give it some other property to make it a little bit more interesting. They'll probably be pretty weak, and I found this website called the Weak Magic Item Generator. I'll put a link in the description. It generates a bunch of really simple little tweaks to an item And I've used a few of these already. I don't think Scalebreaker actually used any of these, but if even if I don't use one of their properties, it'll seed an idea. I just want the items that players are getting to feel a little bit more unique. And then I've also been doing custom monster stats because you have to. Nothing in Hot Springs Islands is statted. Other than that, I've made a lot of terrain. I've made these like stackable terrain chunks. I don't know what to call them, but they're like stackable and sort of modular. And one side is grass, kind of jungly, and the other side is lava. So that covers two types of terrain that they can encounter on Hot Springs Island. I also made a set of ruins terrain. And right now I'm working on a different base set of terrain, which I got this idea from the Dungeon Craft channel. It's a very recent video. In fact, I saw it over the weekend. I think it's only put up a couple days ago. But I was painting this earlier today, and it's this. Basically, it's a circular piece of terrain, and you use props or, if you need to, walls on the terrain instead of tiles. The idea being most action happens in one place anyway, so just having like one central place to lay things out simplifies things quite a bit. And I already had some of the stuff available, so I just decided to go ahead and give it a shot. So that's what I'm working on, or that's the terrain that I've done. I've done a few other things. I did like this weather deck. So instead of doing a random table, I wanted to do a deck so that there's a few nasty pieces of weather in there, like monsoons, and I think I had like acid rain. And I didn't want these things to come up more than once too frequently. So I did as a deck, so you have to get like so far through the deck and then you reshuffle it. There's a reshuffle card that's tucked in the back. So that gives me a little bit more control over the probabilities of those things coming up. I did a bunch of map making. So I did 4 levels. I did 4 levels of the bathhouse. There's this... I did these like huge maps for that. I laid out a bunch of rooms in there. I always feel like, is this going to get used enough? And sure enough, those maps got used a whole lot while we were doing the bathhouse. So that was a really good idea. I do feel like the bathhouse was a little bit too big, but I also wanted it to make sense with what was already in the book, and I didn't want to have to change that stuff too much. Especially the table of like where your art could end up. It is what it is, and the bathhouse is probably something they're going to come back and explore again, at least one more time, maybe another time after that. So I think that map making, it didn't take too long, and so it was probably worth it. I think I got those done in like an afternoon or something, or maybe a couple afternoons. I made an Adamantium Coast Map. This is the coast where the players are from. This is not going to have any immediate use in the campaign, but I do imagine maybe at some point they might go back to the mainland and talk to like professors or trade people. Who knows? I just felt like making a map, and so I made the map for the Adamantium Coast. It probably needs some updates here and there, but I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm also working on a similar sort of Swordfish Islands map. This is a work in progress, but I've gotten it kind of laid out a bit. I just wanted to have a nice map to give the players so that it kind of lays out where the islands are and is kind of nice to look at. I also find that when I'm map making, like when I'm just sitting there like doodling in details and stuff, I get a lot of ideas for like what can be where and like adventure ideas. So I think it's useful as a sort of process thing. I made a little like bathhouse plant miniature, which never really saw play because I never fought the bathhouse plant, but it will see play eventually. I have no doubt about that. I painted the miniatures for all the players, but I haven't gotten to a lot of or any other miniature painting. I'd like to find more time for that, but it's just usually I can only get like a few done a night if I'm like really speed painting them, or if I'm trying to take care and paint them nicely, one a night. And so for all the player miniatures, I did one per night. So that was like a week of work. just right there. I've spent a lot of time trying to clean up my garage. You actually don't know where I am right now. But in my previous videos, you could see this huge, messy thing, space behind me. And it is still very messy, but you can't see it because of that. This nothingness here. So I've been trying to like clean it up so I have better workspace. There's just too much stuff in here. But this is also where I like work for my day job. And then I try to do hobbies in here. It's just, but I'm trying to get it under control. And I spent a lot of time just trying to organize this place. So I've been working also on house rules and researching how to do like boat encounters and just running sea settings. I found some pretty good ideas for that, although definitely the aspect of rules for ship combat and ship rules, all of that stuff is still very much work in progress. I'm looking forward to getting Strongholds and Followers by Matt Colville. I imagine eventually they'll have a nice big ship, and I'll probably make this some sort of stronghold for them, or maybe they'll even get a location that's a stronghold, especially if they start taking things from the island and selling them and making money. If that becomes a part of the campaign, then I'll definitely want that for them. They may even become some sort of pseudo-rival to the Martell Company, or an arm of the Martell Company, or something like that. So I've been trying to figure that out. I've also been playing with various house rules. Because of the way Hot Springs Island, and I've been trying to run it by the book as much as I can, some encounters you have a lot enemies or monsters in the encounter. And so I've been trying to simplify how I handle that as a DM. I think I could simplify it further if my players were open to massive house ruling, which right now, just feeling them out, I don't think they are. So what I've been doing is tracking their hit points through dice, but I use D6s instead of just trying to like fiddle with D10s or something to count numbers. So the way this works is I'll put the miniature down on the board, and I use a large format grid. I use 1 1/3 inch, which is a strange size, but I got that idea from, I think I measured it out, and Kingdom Death uses a 1 1/3 inch square, and I really liked that size. So I started making terrain with that, and it really gives you a lot of space to work with. So typically what I do is I put some dice next to the monster, and it just tracks how their health is. And this has so far worked out really well. Rather than trying to like write down, okay, shadow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can just keep a couple dice next to each one. The problem is if you actually try to track like 40 hit points next to a little miniature, it's not going to work out. So what I do is I use the monster's hit die as a... You use the hit die to assign the value to each pip on the D6 that you're keeping next to it. And then what I do is if you don't hit more than that amount of damage, you do no damage to the monster. So if you do like 10 damage and it's and each pip is worth 8, then you take 1 pip off. And since I'm statting everything anyways, I just make it to where it works out and it's fine. The effective meaning of this is that I've lowered the hit points of the monsters, and I've also lowered the damage. But if I worded it that way to my players, I'm not sure they would like it. But they were accepting of this, and tracking hit points next to things that way is very convenient. I try to keep everything under 3d6, so it might be each pip is worth 2, or each pip is worth 4, or I use half hit die, so it'll be like 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. If there's like a massive monster that has a lot of hit points, I'll just track it because it doesn't have that same problem. I also gave them this house rule for pushing their limits. I don't like it when it feels bad, especially since I'm playing in my setting or in this campaign where I'm trying to push the amount of time between long rests, at least at the moment. It feels bad when they run out of their long rest cooldown abilities and they feel like they can't do anything. So I wanted them to be able to still have this long space between long rests, burn through a bunch of stuff, and then like push their limits. I'm using this house rule where you can use a spell that you or ability that you've already burned and would need to long rest or short rest to get it back. But if you do this, you roll a dice, a d10, and if you roll above a 5, it works. If you roll under a 5, it doesn't work. So there's a 50-50, it works or it doesn't. If you roll under the thing's effective spell level, this works a lot better with spells, but if you roll under the thing's effective spell level, you take a point of exhaustion. So this also gives another way for players to get exhaustion. And then also you can no longer do it until you long rest. And so what this means is it's very easy to handle with spells. So if you cast like a 7th level spell, you roll a 6, you can no longer cast that spell, but it does work, and you take a point of exhaustion. If you, say, try to cast a 3rd level spell, you roll a 4, it doesn't work, but you don't fail to the point where you take exhaustion, and you can try again later. So it gives this sort of risk-reward. For other abilities, I'll just make a call on the spot of what level that thing is. Really, this has only been used a couple times by the players. I was a little concerned they would try to abuse it, but honestly, they try to avoid using it at all. I think the fear of exhaustion is pretty strong, and maybe they just even forget it's an option. Going forward, I'm hoping to get more back into painting miniatures. I have a lot of miniatures still to paint. If you buy miniatures, you probably have a lot of miniatures to paint. I'm going to continue working on this sort of turntable terrain. I'm going to make a few different ones, so there's different variations. Some like ruins and caves. I've already started on that one. I'm going to do a sort of jungle lava terrain reversible one. I also want to make a water one because I think we'll eventually have ship battles. But that'll probably be a while before I get to that. I'm going to continue working on some custom rules for the setting that we're doing, like things you can do in town and just anything else that the setting kind of calls to mind. Maybe like different types of items like guns and stuff. I just want to give some more variation to that and provide it to my players. I think that's about it. Thanks for checking this out. I hope some of this is useful. If you have any questions, because I kind of blew through a lot of the stuff, especially the custom rules. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I might do a video specifically on that thing, giving a more solid example. These sort of diary videos, I'm thinking, are just going to be me talking about the campaign and maybe showing my notes. Probably typically not going into mechanical detail too much. All right. Thanks for watching, and hope you guys are having fun. Catch you later.